All right. 6:01, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Eileen, can you do roll call?
Trustee Barheit.
I'm here.
Trustee Faber.
Here.
Trustee Sweeting.
Here.
Trustee Gant.
Here.
Trustee Hopkins.
Here.
Trustee Young.
Here.
And President Buger.
Here. Do we meet open meeting compliance?
We have.
Great. Okay, trustees, we need approval of the agenda sequence. I do have one change. I'd like to move the administrator's office item number 1 to be the first agenda item today. Does anyone else have any other changes, and are you okay with that?
Yes.
You're good? Okay. Okay. We'll go into public comments. Sure.
Mr. Technically, it's Mr. Hunt.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins.
You want me to do it here?
Yeah, you're fine. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Bill Hopkins, 426 East Ells Road, Silver Lake. I do have a few words I'd like to respond. Today I received a email from a Mr. Kevin Mathewson. And here's what I'd like to say. In response to Mr. Mathewson's article over the weekend, I wanted to share with all of you my response as well as position on the issue. In response to your email, I'm not whining about your article. I respect the job you do and actually found your article factual and to the point. I did not receive your request for comment on this story, but here's my position on it. Alan committed a serious crime as a young adult that should not be taken lightly. He served his time for the crime, and 25 years later, he's dedicated to bettering the community through community work that he's done. I understand the concern around his appointment, as I had the same concern at the time. After serious consideration and deliberation, both alone and with the entirety of the board, including Mr. Gant, Mr. Faber, we determined that he was the correct appointment for the position at the time. To my knowledge, this was a public decision, and there were no residents that expressed concerns at the initial time of the vote. If that has since changed, I will take that into consideration. In terms of my service on the board, my work speaks for itself over the last 3 terms. There is not a trustee that's worked harder or more intentional and deliberate for the residents of Salem Lakes than I have been. From working on the Silver Lake Management District, the Library Board, the Southeastern Fox River Commission, and soon to be the Kenosha County Civil Service Commission. I have always and will always represent the residents of Salem Lakes with integrity, honesty, and forward thinking. I worked tirelessly at these last 2 years navigating and leading during the process of handling the overreach conducted by our previous fire chief and inspector. I continue advocating for the residents by expressing and pushing concerns with previous administration, both in open and closed sessions. I work directly with the owners of Stage Stop, ATE, and their attorney to do whatever I could to best support them throughout this entire process. I worked with other business owners to ensure they were being treated fairly as well. Along with President Bucher, I worked hand in hand with our attorney to make sure that we were moving the process forward, supporting business owners while also following the advice of our attorney to make sure we were putting the village in the correct position throughout the entire process. President Bucher has stressed to me several times she could not have done this without my help because of the amount of work there was. I have and always will show up for and support our residents regardless of their concerns and will continue to do so. I have and will continue to represent my constituents fairly and honestly. If there are concerns over any of my decisions or perspectives, I welcome feedback from the residents that I represent. I will take their opinions and perspectives into consideration, as I always have done, with appointments or decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, I do not have any comments today. Actually, I will say, I am going to comment just a little bit on that, is that, it is true that, Trustee Hopkins did help me, a lot through a lot of the, hard issues that we had last year. And honestly, with the amount of work, stress, the unknowns, it would have been very difficult to navigate that alone. And, you know, we did have other help, but he did help to carry a big workload as well. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're going to go into the agenda. And we're going to go to the administrator's office. Agenda item number 1. Review and possible approval of the Andrea and Orendorf LLP engagement agreement for accounting services 2024.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, Faber and Gant, discussion?
This is the accounting firm, financial firm that we've been using for the last few years, correct?
Yeah. So this is the accounting firm that the village has been using for a number of years. We are looking at using them again for the year of 2024. I do not recommend change of the accounting firm at this time. I recommend status quo for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is Chris is going to be retiring, and with her departure, it is advantageous to have a firm that is very well versed in our accounting processes and procedures and in our audit. So if you are okay with it, they are actually here tonight too. So if you have any direct questions for A&O, they are here, but I do recommend continuing status quo for this year.
Did these fees increase since last year?
Yes, I think they went up 3%.
3%? Okay. I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think it makes sense to remain status quo at this particular point in time, given all the variables, and I agree to move forward.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Okay, we will go into the fire department. Number 1, discussion and possible action on the refurbishment of fire truck 5818.
Evening, everybody.
Greetings.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this proposal. A little bit of history on the proposal. It comes with a pretty good amount of research based on the amount of time that I've had to spend with you all and the department. In looking at where we have come from to where we are going with our fiscal situation, our staffing situation, the type of responses that we're doing. One of the things that becomes apparent is that our fleet is aging. And I think most everybody is aware of that. So you address the idea of how best to fix that in either a short and long term process. One of the things that has become apparent to us is that we have to reevaluate and renew a strategic capital improvement program going forward so that we don't find ourselves in a situation that we're in now. Ryan's going to help me a little bit with the PowerPoint that we have prepared. It's a very short, brief PowerPoint, and I know that everybody had an opportunity to see the materials at home. But moving forward, if Brian would be so kind as to put the button, here's a little bit of a history as to where we have come from and where we are right now. The obvious part is that in 2019, the the department acquired 3 Quantum fire trucks from Pierce Manufacturing in Appleton. Excuse me, they're all pumper tenders. The basic stats on those trucks is that they are, well, let's see, 2,000 gallons of water, 1,500 gallon pump. They weigh about 71,000 pounds each. The purpose and the design of the truck was to provide firefighting capabilities as well as bringing water to rural scenarios. It's no mystery that we don't have hydrants very frequently, and so therefore we have to bring our water to the fight. The original design concept was a good one. Came from a good company, well respected in the state of Wisconsin and throughout the country. And I think initially the idea of it was a healthy one. If I were to be critical in any way, the fact that 3 of them came at the same time really did not set us up for any type of replacement program. The department is simply getting busier. Our basic call volume on a daily basis is roughly 4.5 to 5.5 calls on a regular day. We had that this morning by 10 a.m. That involved car crash. We had a fire alarm at the grocery store. We had 4 medical calls, and that was all between 6 a.m. and noon today. So the call volume is simply increasing. We're going to get busier with our department. How does that relate to fire trucks? It relates in terms of how many times they're going out the door and why are they going out the door. 5814, for example, the ones that are mentioned here are 71,000 pounds apiece. I came to you with my first official piece of business and asked for tires on 5814 because we're simply tearing them off the trucks every time we run out the door on a medical call. Again, good rigs, good intention, but they are starting to wear in different places in each truck. Each truck, there are 3 of them that are relatively identical. They have a series of difficulties in electronics or the air system that keeps the brakes and the other parts of the truck running, the pump part of it. All of these little things add up to fixing 3 different trucks all the time at the same time. 2017, when the merger occurred, we picked up the Silver Lake rigs, and I know that you all have more experience with Silver Lake in the department than I do, and I respect and appreciate that. Why are we looking at a truck that's 17, 27, 25 years old, is it? 25 years old, 1998. One of the purposes of looking at a truck of that age is it's in immaculate condition. The vendor that's going to do the work for us inspected the truck here at our facility and found it to be in incredible shape for its age. And I think that comes basically from the fact that it didn't get a lot of action. It's a smaller platform. It gets out the door a little bit easier. It's a less wear and tear. It weighs 54,000 pounds as opposed to 71,000 pounds. And I think from the philosophy that I bring forward is it's a better out the door, quicker attack type of apparatus. A little bit further in the timeline, 2021, the 2 ambulances were ordered. And as you know better than I do, that it took a while to get those chassis. They were delivered most recently, and both of those rigs are in great shape and they serve the community exceptionally well. Our only concern is that 2 of them showed up at the same time, and we may face the same concerns going forward. Again, capital replacement program. Refurbishing 5860, which is the big tanker that sits at the firehouse down the block, was a good move. It had a decent chassis underneath it, and it needed to be rebuilt in order to serve in the manner that it does. 5851, as you may be familiar with, is the heavy rescue truck that we're in the process of finding the best use for. In about 3.5 years, we spent $1.5 million in funding and capital. Going forward, we have to be fiscally responsible. We have to be appropriate in the manner in which we spend our money and serve the community. And fire trucks these days, as you will see, take anywhere from 2 to 3 years. If we were to order a truck tonight from, say, Pierce Manufacturing in Appleton, sign a contract there at this meeting, we would not get that truck for nearly 3 years. The cost of the community would be in excess of $1 million. As we go forward with a 5 to 25 year replacement plan, it's not going to get any less expensive. It's simply going to grow in cost. In the interim, our philosophy is if we can take a piece of equipment that's in excellent shape to start with, refurbish it to near new condition, and extend the life of it 15 more years, at a fraction or a third of the cost of a new truck, we feel that's a fairly sound plan. Now, I may be wrong, but I certainly hope not. I think that a couple of factors that come into play. Again, the philosophy of the department going forward, how best do we serve the community? We're looking at the run responses that we do now. Most recently, it was common for an ambulance and a massive fire truck to go out the door together for a medical call. It's really not good use of our resources. Our staffing is growing. One of our greatest crises now is to build our staff. We're actively doing so. A lot of forward thinking, a lot of creative manner in which we're bringing people back to the department. So instead of running a giant fire truck and an ambulance out the door, we're gonna run our med unit out the door, and we're gonna chase it with a smaller vehicle that would be more suited for the needs. And at the same time, still have resources left over to fight fires if calls come in the interim. Using this particular truck here, this is our 5818. It's one of the previous Silver Lake rates. That will help us to accomplish that. Part of the refurbishment program will be to, for example, re-inspect, completely clean, re-inspect the underpinning, the chassis, the subframe, the pump compartment, the air lines, the drivetrain, engine, transmission, and all the components that make the truck go. That's part of the refurbishment. We'll go back one, Brian. The other part of it is the interior of the cab is going to be brought up to modern standards. The inside of that particular rig is incredibly loud in there. It's detrimental to the use of the apparatus, detrimental to the use of the people that are in it. Fire trucks, you have to be able to hear what you're doing, communicate well, communicate with each other inside the rig. And by enhancing the inside of that truck, bringing into current standards, headsets where we can communicate with each other electronically, eliminate a lot of that interior noise and still be effective. That's one of the things we're going to do. Things like rebuilding the pump. One of the unknown variables, and if you mentioned, or if you looked at the paperwork, I left a little bit of fudge room, so to speak, because we're not 100% sure of what's going to happen once we start taking apart the internals of the truck. It's very much like rehabbing a home. Our greatest fear, if there is any, is that the pump compartment area will be our weak point. One of the things that happens is they completely disassemble the pump compartment. Take all the panels off the side, the walkway goes away, all the plumbing goes away, and you're left with the pump casing itself. Once the pump casing is inspected, that'll be when we determine if that pump is viable to simply rehab and put back together, or we're gonna have to go greater and get a new pump casing. And that's where we can run into some additional unforeseen costs. Anywhere from $10,000 to $35,000. We have that variance budgeted. We hope we're not gonna have to get into that situation. Once that is done, the pump is basically like new at that point. And it's the heart and soul of the rig. Drivetrain, engine, transmission of the pump are the heart and soul. So,
Chief, quick question for you. What maintenance records exist for that rig when it was under Silver Lake?
I think as I related to you one time, I found a box of old records.
Yeah,
I don't have a hard and fast answer for you. It would be something I have to look up.
yeah, because I don't know,
It's in manuals that would be helpful in knowing that information, but I
Yeah.
can't give you a hard answer.
because I believe that was the rig that at one time during some training that we had, we sucked the interior lining of our large diameter hose and it got wrapped around the pump. And I believe that was 5818. So if there's any damage as a result of that, I know we had the pump fixed, but you may still find some long lingering damage in that sense.
I think that's our Achilles heel, if anything, in this particular truck. Otherwise, we're in pretty good shape for the rehab.
Yeah.
The other things that'll be done is electronically, it'll be stern, front to back. All the electronics will be inspected and determine whether it needs to be replaced or enhanced. Although lighting on the truck will be changed over to LED, which is a great cost on the electrical draw of the system. The generator, the phone system, all the cabinets, the interior, the exterior, all gets refurbished. And then, of course, the whole truck gets repainted. A few things about it. It enhances performance. As I know you had a chance to look at these, the performance should increase and improve. It should be easier to drive. It should be easier to operate. It should be cleaner, quieter, more efficient. It meets current and modern technology within the standards of the truck's time that it was built. We're hoping to extend the life anywhere from 10 to 15 years, which will draw us into the next part of our replacement program, where the truck goes from frontline to middle service to now a very good reserve truck is what the ultimate plan is. And of course, the cost effectiveness. We're doing this truck for a third of what it would cost for a new one, right? The question is, who's going to do this? We have selected a company called Reliant Fire Apparatus out of, are they Slinger, Wisconsin? A little bit about these guys is the original vendor for these particular trucks is Reliant Fire. They have a refurbishing facility in Slinger, and it's primarily retired employees of Pierce who built the truck in the first place. And they have a combination of Pierce employees as well as retired Pierce employees. They have facilities there to take the truck apart, disassemble it, reassemble what's necessary, bring new and old components together, and prep it for paint. I think you guys had some pictures of the paint process, how it's taken apart and put back together. That's all done in Slinger. The only part that isn't done in Slinger is painting, which will go to the Pierce manufacturing facility in Appleton. They have state-of-the-art paint facilities there. That's where the truck will be repainted. And then it'll be brought back to Slinger, reconstructed, finalized, and prepared for final delivery. So a little bit about this and where we stand now is your part of it. How you feel about the process? Do you have questions for me? How can we move forward together with the understanding that we're doing this in the best interest of the community? Should we be successful tonight, we sign a contract tomorrow, which is half the amount of the total, which I think I prepared for you. I think we would be signing about $145,000 tomorrow. Secure a spot in the vendor production process. That's another thing that's pretty significant. Even in the refurb business, it's a timely process. Everybody in the industry is trying to find a way to stretch their dollars and get new equipment quicker. When they're waiting for 18 months to 4 years to get a new truck, people get creative. How do we get apparatus in our department to do what we need to do? The vendor that I'm talking to says we're pretty likely to get a spot within roughly somewhere 20 to 30 days, which is outstanding. Once that happens, we have a 3 to 5 month delivery time. Get the truck back in service in our community roughly July, if things go well. To me, that's a win. We're spending a third of the cost and we're getting a complete date, ready to go, new-ish fire truck in a fraction of the time it's going to take to get it brand new. And I realize it's not the optimum solution, but it's a pretty decent one given our circumstances. We would be interactive with the process, going up, inspecting the truck as it's built, very much like a brand new truck. We will do an inspection and then bring the truck back home, put it back in service, retrain our people on it, put it back out into the community. And ultimately, it's going to look like that. Part of what's happening in our community, it's specific to our department. It's no mystery that we're in a revitalization process. And one of the things that's important to us is, for lack of a better term, rebranding our department, bringing that new, fresh, progressive look to where we need to be. We're moving forward. We're moving forward in many aspects of the job, from the people that we hire, to the philosophy that we engage, to the way that we fight fires and serve people, to how we look at the community. One way we can do that is rebranding some of our apparatus. It says, hey, Salem Lakes is back in business. We're here to serve you. We're ready to help. We want to help. We want to be a part of the community. And I think, given the circumstances, I think that this is a fairly fiscal, responsible way to address some of those issues. We're going to go forward and we're going to ask for $1 million from you guys to buy new fire trucks. That's going to be a painful process. In 5 years from that, it's going to be $1.2 million. And past that time, we're going to be approaching $2 million for a fire truck. You ask yourself, do you want the new school or do you want the new fire truck? It's crazy. That's unfortunately where we are. The industry doesn't change. It's getting more aggressive. People are finding ways to get stuff in-house quicker. And this is one solution that we can entertain at this time. So that's more or less my presentation. I'd be willing to answer any questions that you have.
How many miles does this truck have?
This one, I just wrote that down. 20,013,
Okay.
20,316 on that one.
Okay, and the tires are good?
Yeah.
So there's, so after this, you don't anticipate,
We won't be changing any of that.
okay.
After the refurbishing's completed, what kind of warranty do they offer, if any?
90 days.
90 days.
90 days. If we put new manufactured parts, each of the independent components would have their own individual. But as a
Warranty.
whole, as a single point of contact, the refurbishing company offers 90 days.
If I could ask one thing of you, if this is approved, would you ask them to take a look at that one circuit that you and I talked about once before? When those rigs were new, and Assistant Chief Keski may remember, we had a structure fire, and just as we went into overhaul, the engine shut down because the interior lights are tied to the fuel cell system, and it tripped a non-automatic breaker. So we had no clue what that was, but we were just going into overhaul at the time. So ask if that's been
We will definitely.
changed.
We will definitely address that. And interestingly that you mentioned that last week in the midst of our fire calamity, Randall truck had a similar circumstance. Quarter-inch airline shut them down, parking on the side, broke in 5 hours.
Yeah,
Quarter-inch airline.
it doesn't take much.
Address that.
So the amount that you would like us to approve tonight is 143,000.
They have a number of 144,923.
4923. Any other questions?
More like, I got more, some background. This is a perfectly serviceable truck. It's good, it's running now. I think the only problem is we had the pump done 2 years ago.
The pump is, they basically put bulb on that pump.
Yeah, so that's the, probably the only thing I think that's really wrong with this is the pump. Questionable, it's working. I think, and he's doing a fantastic job. I think you're doing a great job. I think we're pushing us away from a new truck this way. I think if we stuck into the intercom system and the pump rebuild, that would last. This is a 25-year-old truck. 35, when it hits 35, the resale on this is probably going to be $15,000, $20,000. Resale sucks on these, excuse the French. Terrible resale on these when they get that age. I like how he's thinking. I really do. I think you're doing a fantastic job. But it's putting us back from a new truck where we should be getting in this time skip. We really got to do that, is get these steps so we're not replacing all these at the same time. That's my speed on this.
Mr. Barhead, don't be confused by the fact that I'm not gonna go see our village manager or administrator and say, okay, can I sign a contract this week for a truck that we know for 3 years?
I know, I understand that.
We're on that path for sure.
Yeah, I know.
And I appreciate your concern on it. Partially right, but we are not pushing away a new truck, not at this point.
No, but I mean, the money wise,
Yes, sir.
the money, put the money into a newer vehicle.
So the question I would have then is of our administrator, do we have the 144,923?
Yes, and I actually wanted to add to the discussion just slightly. So we're not necessarily pushing a new truck down the road. We're simply saying we have 3 trucks that are the same age, and all 3 of them are going to age out at the same time. So we can't afford to buy 3 new trucks at the same time, but what we can do is refurbish one, work on purchasing another that we won't see for 3 years from now. And then eventually you may have to buy another one, but you have to budget for that. Right now, we don't have the budget to buy 3 new trucks, but we do have money set aside in our capital plan to be able to refurbish the one and then to look at long-term purchasing a second.
If I might be allowed to piggyback on that. One of the creative things that we're doing is looking at a piece of equipment that we have that represents equity. We have a piece of equipment in our inventory that can be creatively reallocated for other purposes. In other words, 5851, you're familiar with it, the big rescue truck. We have opportunity to take that vehicle and change it essentially into a new stock rescue pumper or pumper tender available in somebody's production process now. And essentially cut out 3/4 of the time it would take to get a new one. I think we've had discussion, each of us a little bit here and there about that process and that concept. And we start by refurbishing 18. If we can redirect the value of 5851 into a ready-to-go stock unit that serves our purpose, we get a fire truck this year, we get a fire truck late this year or perhaps next year. We continue with our capital improvement process. So in respect to what Bill is saying, we are by no means pushing away a new truck. We're trying to creatively continue to enhance this.
I didn't mean it that way.
No, I understand.
It's the money we invest in a newer truck.
So I would make the motion to approve the $144,923 as the first payment towards the refurbishing of 5818.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We should have to do the whole purchase of the whole cost to do this.
I would recommend approving the entire cost.
So we can recommend it.
5,000?
I will modify that motion then. Let me go back to that. What was that total cost, chief?
285 to 3, wasn't it?
285, we're gonna get the exact number.
So do you want the
It's
high side?
essentially 286,000 starting with the understanding that we may encounter some unforeseen costs. That's why we gave that range of 285 to 300.
I'll modify my motion then to not exceed $300,000 for the refurbishing of 5818.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Hopkins and Sweeting. Jared,
Yes.
did you have something?
Yeah, my question is, because you said 285 to 300, but now now you think we can get it done for the 200?
I would be comfortable sticking closer to 300,000.
300.
It's that little bit of space if we do encounter issues.
I'm totally in favor of it. The only comment I have is I like white.
It says it's Silver Lake. Yeah, it's like the color is the same.
Like I said, in respect to the history of the grid.
Okay, Jared,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Billy,
No.
Kelly,
Yes.
I'm a yes. So motion carries 6-1.
Again, I thank you very much. for your-
Oh, did I ask you?
No,
Oh, sorry, Mr. Hopkins.
He made the motion.
I'm a yes.
Okay, now it carries 6-1. All right. Okay. All right, number 2, under the fire department, discussion and possible action of Milwaukee Area Technical College for personnel paramedic training, invoice number 65972 in the amount of $12,154.35.
So moved.
I'll move to approve.
How about you do a second? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do Hopkins and Faber. Any discussion?
Well, this is for 3 individuals. I thought it was excellent. It's all their EMS training and
How many would that bring you up to once they complete their schooling? So 10.
The majority of those are full-time personnel.
Okay, thank you.
All good news.
Yes.
Good question. With the money that we spend on their training, is there anything in their job hiring that there's a minimum amount of time they stay with the department before they can leave?
Yeah, we most recently instituted a process of a contractual agreement with new hires
Okay,
that are going through that we're subsidizing their paramedic training to your minimal return. In other words, they belong to the department for 24 months.
24 months.
And is that is there an hourly basis, like a certain number of required hours for that 24 months?
Not specifically with the full-time personnel, it's work roughly a 56-hour work week, and of course, there's vacation time and things like that. 200+ days a year roughly. We don't have a specific number breakdown, but we do expect a 2-year commitment from our investment.
Yeah.
With our goal ultimately to have all of our full-time people paramedics.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Nope.
Okay, Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Ms. Sweeting,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, motion carries unanimous. We'll go on to planning and zoning.
I got a question. You guys recognize that our assistant chief and our
We do.
Captain Rags, as we call him,
We do.
can't pronounce his last name. And then the assistant chief, Mike Jesse.
I know, thank you.
Hey, stand up. You're new hire. I just thought you guys.
And congratulations again. All right. All right, planning and zoning, number 1, notice. During the January 8th meeting, the board requested the floodplain ordinance to come back to the village board on February 5th, 2024, and not today. So just mentioning that.
One question on that.
Yes.
When they present the flood plan, I know I had a question last time whether or not that included the water from Waukesha diversion of 1.2 million gallons per day. He wasn't sure if that was taken into account. I'd really like to know that answer.
It was not taken into account, but the under flood. Would equate to 8,494 cubic feet per second. 1 million gallons per day at a steady rate, is about 1.5 cubic feet of water per second. So minimal that it wouldn't make. And you wouldn't be able to see the difference.
And that's also a reduction in the amount of flow, correct?
That's what I'm saying. It's $1.2 million gallons less per day.
Well, in other words,
Okay.
we'd have to have that much
And then
to
some.
get to the flood, right?
Yeah.
So we're in better shape.
Correct.
Cubic feet away from 8,900.
Yeah, it's not much.
8,494 cubic feet of water per second. It's
negligible. I had to talk with him about it as well. And with Waukesha diversion, when we did the calculations for the amount of water going into it was pre-diversion. And now we're looking at it after. So the numbers are negligible. They're so small that it won't make much of a difference.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No. All right, we'll move on to number 2, discussion and possible action on a plan commission recommendation on a minor land division of 28619 108th Street, specifically proposing to divide tax parcel 704-120-291-1231, 30,000 square feet into one 18,800 square foot parcel and one 11,200 square parcel by a certified survey map, otherwise known as a CSM. For informational purposes only, this property is located on the south side of 108th Street, approximately 260 feet west of 286th Avenue.
Meet minimum standards for lots.
everyone's informing you.
Ryan, can you make that just a little bit bigger? Oh, there you go. Thank you.
It's down.
In the Belmar subdivision.
Right. Is that in flooded area there?
No, we got a full plan.
I didn't think there was much of that in Belmar. 3 lots?
Okay.
High tide.
Okay, so the plan commission made this.
The recommendation of our planning and zoning and approve this, along with all the conditions that were added.
I'll second it.
Okay,
I missed the first set. Trustee Faber,
trustee Faber.
thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the full service agreement for on-call planning services.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
With regards to them and what we're doing for the county, what's the difference?
The county is going to cover anything that has to go in front of planning and zoning. And they will also be done for developer permits. This would be more for the 6-month projects like impact fees, needs assessments, park plan. They're currently doing our 2050 comprehensive plan. So just the larger stuff that the county would not be.
Thank you.
I move to approve.
Oh, we already have a first and a second. Yep. Are there any other questions? No?
I guess I do. They're doing the 2050 plan. That's gonna be billed on an hourly basis,
Yeah. We're just-
or are they,
Got one more chapter to go. And then we have a public hearing and come back in front of the board.
okay.
Very detailed.
Okay. All right. Jared,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Ms. Sweeting?
Yes.
Mr. Faber?
Yes.
Mr. Barheit?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, motion carries. Go to the clerk's office, review and possible approval of applications filed with the clerk for retail licenses to sell fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors in accordance with the provisions of chapter 125.04 of the Wisconsin State Statutes by the following, with approval contingent on background check clearance, completion of beverage server class, and payment of the necessary fees. This would be for Trevor Creek Tavern, under Emmond Purty.
Motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Okay. Hopkins and Gant, any discussion?
This is the old,
Goodfellas.
the small strip mall,
Mhm.
okay? And it was previously a tavern restaurant with all shots, so.
Yes,
Yes.
Is it in that same building or the middle building this time? Or the other one was?
I think it's the same building. It doesn't give you the suite number, so, but it's in this, it's gotta be, because it's already.
Well, It's in the same in the other one.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Number 2, review and possible approval of applications filed with the clerk for amusement machine license and cabaret license contingent upon payment of the necessary fees for Trevor Creek Tavern.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Jared and Dennis. I had one question on their hours because they seemed really long, like 8 a.m. for cabaret.
On the weekends.
So it says night and weekends after 5. And then it says Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, 8 to 12 a.m. Are those just their
Standard hours.
hours? And then the cabaret is only going to be after 5? Is that,
Cabaret is your live music, so.
yeah. That's not, that's right, 8 a.m. I mean, nobody would really,
Well,
I don't know if anybody would say anything over there, but
be surprised.
you never know. I just want to make sure that when we approve, we know what we're approving and giving them permission for. I think it's after 5. So. Okay, well, that's all I had then. I guess I just would like to make that more clear that it is from 5 p.m. to close. And is that every night of the week then?
I
Yes.
believe so. I thought it was on the weekends, but
because it says.
We have a
it lists
standard.
Everything. Yeah,
Well, we could amend the motion to
yeah,
specify.
To our specific,
yeah. Do we know
For
when
the-
they did their application, if they had
I
listed
apologize.
what days or?
I apologize, I was out of the office
No, it's
during,
okay. I was
during
just
this
saying,
time.
I
But
just read this today when I got here and I didn't get a chance to talk to you, so.
we wouldn't.
The question is the 8 a.m. start,
Well,
right?
and what days of the week? Is it gonna be every day of the week that they're open or
It shouldn't be 8 a.m. though for cabaret.
no?
No, and we have our standard hours on it, and they wouldn't be able to exceed it without coming in front of.
But are we okay with every,
Why don't
I can pull their application if you want to know prior, or otherwise approve it to our
Ordinance.
ordinance the way it is.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm okay with that. Right, Jared, can you redo your motion just to approve it,
Yeah,
our ordinance?
I'll make a motion to, I withdraw my first motion. I'll make a motion to approve Trevor Creek Tavern for a cabaret license along with, the amusement machine license, as long as it is by our ordinance here in the village.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Okay, number 3, review and possible approval of applications filed with the clerk for operator licenses and direct sellers. We're going to do the operators first. As presented, there's 3 of them.
I'll make a motion to approve Candace Ladanowski and Anthony Zuludek for approval.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Hang on. Okay,
And we're not including Angela Just in there and
No, that is correct.
That's the one with the records.
I couldn't find anything on CCAP with that last entry,
with,
Angela Just.
Oh, I found it.
because I found it, it's on federal.
Oh,
It's quite-
talking about the last entry.
Okay,
Those are all.
all right, so we said Hopkins, and who was the second on that?
Dennis.
Okay, in favor. Okay, for Ladonsky and Zaludek. We'll just go down the line then. Jared,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes,
Dennis,
Yep,
Bill?
Yep.
And I'm a yes, so motion carries unanimous.
And I would make a motion to deny the operator license for an Angela Just based on the background check.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, review and possible approval of applications filed with the clerk for operator licenses and direct sellers for power home remodeling for Michael Brown, Liliana Moreno, and Tyler West.
I make a motion not to approve. The applications appear to be incomplete. Nobody put down a license plate number. There's no telephone numbers, and I say for now, it's a no.
And can I add to that,
Bad reputation.
well, it was hard for me to understand what they were even writing. Because it was all, lack of a better term, bad writing. So I couldn't make out some letters. I'm not trying to be offensive about it.
I guess my question is, did we white out the license plate?
I checked that
that's where.
because the other ones can include license plates and phone
Yeah,
numbers.
and they should include license plates.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I have a question for our clerk. We do background checks on people that are gonna be working in an establishment, yet we have these direct seller applications. in which we have no information on the individual going door to door in our neighborhoods. It doesn't ask for the individual that would be direct selling. It doesn't ask them their phone number or their, and they don't go through a background check.
They do go through a background check.
Oh, they do.
They
Yeah.
do go through a background.
The individuals go through background
Correct.
checks.
Correct, the individuals do.
And was that done with this power thing or that waits to get approved?
They have been, they were submitted in your board portal. And if they had a record, it would show, it should show
It
the
is.
record.
I guess I think that the phone number, is pretty important
And license plate.
For the
and
vehicle,
license plate.
I mean, it's something they can resubmit fully completed, but as it stands,
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, all in favor to deny?
I have Sweetie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll second her.
oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Sweeting and Young. All in favor to deny Power Home Remodeling as a group?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We'll go on to number 3, review and possible approval of applications filed with the clerk for operator licenses and direct sellers for weed eating as presented.
Hang on.
This is another one I kind of wanted to. Let's see here. Where is the?
It's, you're talking the Dakota Tabor?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I would make a motion to approve, all with the exception of, Dakota Tabor, I think his name is.
Yep. Yep. I'll say it.
Based on the extensive background check. I should add that. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I have a question on this one too, because they all seem to drive the same car with the same license plate
Yep.
number. How does that work when they come to town? There's only one that has a different car and license plate number out of the whole group.
Could be a 20-passenger van.
It's a Kia Sportage.
Well,
Oh,
that's something you eat for.
I don't know how this works. Is it just that they
Well, they
send,
might be the same company using the same vehicle.
well, that's what I'm asking. Do they send out multiple people in multiple
Typically-
departments? Or do
typically-
they just send out a group and they're all in that
Typically, in
one
the
car?
past, it's been a supervisor in the car
Okay,
and then others branch out. But it's not always gonna be guaranteed that,
I see.
okay? Because in past years, we've had different vehicles. We've also had, they don't wear the tags like they're
They
supposed
should.
to. And occasionally, if someone calls in sick, they may pull somebody else. We haven't done background checks. Now, not necessarily this company, but companies in the past.
Yeah. So, and I guess for me, if somebody came to my door, I'd want them to be obviously wearing something, and with everything that is going on these days, you know, I almost feel like I know we put their names on the website, but
Yeah.
why don't we put the vehicle and the license plate on the website too? That, you know, if they're not in that vehicle and that, just my thoughts.
Here's the other thing though, too, at least what I've seen in the neighborhood where I live, they may park 2-3 blocks down the
They
road.
may.
So when they come to your door, you look out, there may not be any vehicles out in front.
Not in my neighborhood though.
Well, not in your neighborhood. So,
But anyways, all right. 2 cents. Okay, so we have a motion to approve all except for Dakota Tabor.
correct.
All right,
And a second.
and a second by Mr. Favor. So Hopkins in favor. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Kelly, did you say aye?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Great. And I will make a motion to deny Dakota Tabor per the extensive background check record.
I'll second that.
All right, and we have a second by Mr. Faber. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, number 4, review and possible approval of vouchers from January 9th, 2024 through January 22nd, 2024 in the amount of $11,972,958.28.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Faber and Hopkins, I am going to let everyone know. I questioned this large amount because it seemed very large. And this is January, so I found out, this being my first time, it's tax overpayments and it's also our payments to the library, the schools, et cetera. So that is why it is a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I also have a question here. When we start talking approval of the vouchers, it's really a two-part process here. You're approving the 92,000, but we're also approving the detail to it. Is there a way we can split those two apart? Or have the first part, which is the total, after the summary? You know where I'm going? Because when we look at the vouchers as a whole, the first thing that comes up is the total amount,
yes.
all right? But then we're drilling down, all right? And a couple times we've gotten caught when people approve the vouchers, they're approving the 92 million, they don't realize it includes everything underneath of it. That's where I'm going. Yeah. And the other question I have, is there a way we can look into trying to consolidate our cell phone service as much as possible? Now, I know the fire department has some unique requirements. But outside of that, is there a way we can try to consolidate the cell phones?
In
what regards, Bill? So we have multiple vendors, it looks like, because when we're going through here, we see them listed differently. Example, would be John Carrier is on with the fire department.
Those are corrections have been made as far as the department appropriations and what bill they land on. There are only 2 devices left on Verizon because they're Verizon specific. Everything else should be on AT&T.
Okay, all right. So it's been working towards that.
Yes.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Ms. Sweeting?
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, motion carries unanimous. All right, number 5, review and possible approved minutes from January 8th, 2024.
There was just one change just with the attendance. I think it
Okay.
stated like trustee Sweeting was absent. It is going to change to excused. She had called in
Yes.
ahead of time. So just so the wording is proper
Mhm.
and
I'll make a motion to approve with that correction.
I'll second.
Does that affect Mr. Young's absence as well? Noted excuse?
it would,
Because I was generally talking about anytime trustee is
It would be-
absent, we should note whether it's
Let me know.
excused or
I
so
did,
that it would say,
Yeah.
and it'll reflect Jared too.
okay.
If we don't receive notice of it, then we're writing absent.
Yeah.
But if we receive
did.
notice, then it just.
Weren't here.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Is that something we can put into place and just make it standard operating procedure because there's losing my word, ramifications for a trustee if they're negligent in their attendance. So in order to have a proper record of it, it just seems that it would fit in the minutes when it denotes their absence.
As long as it, at that evening, that it's stated that they're excused either by calling the clerk's office or letting president know. And then we'll just state it at the open meeting. It'll be in the record and.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, I missed it. So Mr. Faber, and who did the second on that?
I do.
Hopkins? Okay. All right. Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yep, yes.
Kelly, you're going to
Abstain.
abstain? Okay. Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Young?
I abstain.
Okay, and I'm a yes, so motion carries 5-0 to 5-0.
2-2.
We're good too.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, great. All right, and then we'll go to the last item, which is Administrator's Office, which is the Administrator's Report.
All right, good evening. So once a month, probably the second meeting of every month, you'll get an administrator's report from me, either written or verbal, or both. And then, so this is, I'm giving you both, verbal. I'm gonna briefly go through it because you do have it in front of you, just some highlights of things that we've been working on over the last 2 months. One of them is that we are developing some new policies and procedures that we haven't had before. Some of those would include things like your snowplow or winter maintenance policy that you all received in your email. And with the winter maintenance policy, we also updated our website. Our website now lists the priority of operations for how we do snowplow operations throughout the village. This is helpful because then it also reduces the number of phone calls we get to village hall, and it's publicly transparent as to why we do things a certain way, with your primary arterial roads being your highest priority, and then of course your cul-de-sacs, your alleys and your dead ends being your lowest priority. That doesn't mean they're not a priority. It just means you have to get the roadways that take traffic the fastest, that are for your school routes, your emergency routes, things like that. They have to be done first. So that has been updated to our website. You will see additional policies coming forward as they go into the future. I don't have a full list of them for you today, but there will be many. Additionally, union contracts, we have 2 unions in the village. One is the Teamsters Public Works Union. The second one is the IAFF Firefighters Union. We did recently complete a contract negotiation with the Public Works Union. It was a 1-item contract. Basically, it was their wages. They agreed to do the exact same wage increase as the rest of your village staff that are non-unionized got, which was 3.26. We will begin discussing the IAFF Firefighters Union contract in the near future. I'm just awaiting a request from. And then security upgrades, just a heads up there, we are adding security access key fobs to several locations around the village. This will provide increased security and electronic record keeping of who is accessing facilities. This is really important, especially on some facilities where perhaps there's like homeland security concerns and things like that. So we are adding like more cameras and more key fob access so that we always have a record of who has accessed those facilities and when. You will also be getting a key fob access to your room. So if you forget your key, just remember to have your badge. So and it's the same way you get into the building. So this badge will get you into your room as well. Yes.
What badge?
So this little key fob thing that you all, I believe.
Yes.
No.
We don't
What
have
badge?
badges.
This thing.
Yeah, we don't have badges.
So that the next item I'm covering is badges.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna
The
get
next
one.
item, so badges and key fob. So your key fob will get you in your room. But your badge, when you get one, will also get you in that room. So something that I've implemented across the entire village is that every single village employee now has a picture ID badge. And for all of our employees, we provided them with a breakaway lanyard. So mine is not, mine's like pretty. But everybody else got a breakaway one. If they want something pretty, they can buy one. But the breakaway is so that if it gets caught on anything, it will pull off, it won't strangle them. So.
And they're to wear those all the time?
The ask is that everybody should be wearing these and
Okay.
these are electronically enabled as well. So we don't have to provide these little black key fobs anymore. We can just provide the badge. So I think that that is an increased security item too, because then you always know, regardless of who you are, when you're out in the public, interacting with the public, if you're wearing this, it helps to show that you're an official person with the village, helps with safety and security of your public. It's just a good idea.
Yep.
So if you would like one, let me know and Brian will be taking your photo. And adding it, or you can email him your photo, that's fine too. So insurance, just as an update, something that I'm working on is always wherever I can, obtaining 3 quotes. And presenting to you the quotes for any kind of services that we use. It's not required that we get 3 quotes on everything, but I think it's a best practice that I would like to see implemented. So we are working on getting 3 quotes for our insurance. That's your things like your property casualty, workman's comp insurance. We will be presenting those to you at the February 5th meeting. I have 2 of the 3 quotes. I'm waiting for the 3rd one to come in. I had hoped to bring it to you this evening, but I don't have that 3rd quote. My goal is to bring 3. So, and I will bring a recommendation as well to that meeting. Budget, we are already beginning work on the 2025 budget. I know we just started 2024, but there are going to be some significant changes coming to the way your 2025 budget looks and appears and how the process goes. One of those things that we'll be working on changing is that the entities that you provide grants out to, sometimes they come late in the process after you've already reviewed your budget, asking for amount of money for a grant. So now we're going to be asking for those budget requests in July, so that we have them as we are working with our finance director / treasurer to build the budget, and then also them working with you. So an example would be like the sharing center. You provide them allocation, and we would like them to provide us the written request earlier. That way we provide you a fully baked budget that is balanced and transparent, and we can explain to you, your budget options. Can you afford to fund everything? Is there something that we have to give on, whatever that may be? So the process is changing a little bit. We're also going to move towards eventually a category-based budget. We currently have what you would call like a line item budget. It is still in categories, but it's line item. I'd like to be able to move towards a category-based budget in its entirety for 2025. That's a big ask. It's not exactly an easy thing to change to. The goal is 2025. I hope that we can get us there. We might not be able to because it's a monumental change. So the other thing that we're working on for 2025 is that we're going to be putting together a 30-year equipment and facility capital plan that assists in your long-range planning for replacements of expensive equipment, such as your fire trucks and snowplows. There are many other pieces of equipment that are very expensive in the village too. And you might ask the why for a 2025 or a 30-year plan. You're really only accurate maybe on a couple of years, especially with inflation the way it is. But when you're looking at $1 million fire truck, it's really hard to budget for one of those and to save for one of those if you're only looking on an annualized basis, right? So if you take and you itemize out every single piece of equipment that the village owns over a 30-year plan, you can then take and say, we need a new fire truck in 2027 and another one in 2030 and another one in 2040. And you can figure out how to save for those, in addition to also, oh, well, we've got a snowplow that needs to be replaced in 2025 and another one in 2029. And you know what I mean? So you start to build all of that in, and the value of doing a 30-year capital improvement plan is then you don't have the peaks and the valleys. Oftentimes in government finance, you have peaks and valleys if you don't have these 30-year plans. So one year you may come with these 3 fire trucks that we know we purchased all at the same time, and they're all going to come due for replacement at the same time. That's not good planning. So we want to get away from that. We can't afford $3 million of fire trucks in 1 year. So we're going to put them on a 30-year plan with all of the rest of our equipment. That's going to take a little bit of time to build. I've done this before. I was able to grab my old plan from another village that I worked for. And shared it with staff this past week, and we're going to work on replacing all of their items with our items and building our plan. So elections, the clerk is working on preparing for the 2024 primary and spring election. Planning, zoning, and inspections, we successfully transitioned over these functions to the county. And we've exited both of those other contracts that were providing those services for us. Fire department, again, we're evaluating budget for future decisions. We're also working on a staffing study. You set aside money for a staffing study. I don't know that we're going to need the funding for the staffing study. I think we can do it in-house. At least that's the approach that I'm taking. I built a survey. The survey that Chief Carr and I are going to be sending out to municipalities that are of similar size with similar types of fire departments. And hopefully we'll be able to get the information back in a timely fashion. And that will tell us of municipalities of similar size. I'm looking between population of 12,000 to 22,000, just for a bit of a range. How many full-time staff do you have, part-time staff, volunteers? How many chiefs do you have? What is your management structure, command structure? And what is your operating budget, as well as what is your service area? And so from that, we'll be able to dive into, do we have the right structure? Do we have the right staffing volume? And then also what is their budget? So we can compare where we are at compared to where they are at. So from that, I'll bring additional information to you. And then my last two items are resettlement information. I don't have a lot of information on this right now. There were some questions that I've received from some of you, as well as some members of the community, of what happens if we get a bus of people dropped off in Salem Lakes? What do we do? Who do we call? What's the plan? I'm working on gathering that kind of information so that if we do happen to get a bus dropped off, we don't have a homeless shelter. We don't really have a place for them to go here. Well, I don't know who to call. So we're working on putting that information together and reached out to some of my resources to
Take them
help.
to
Right?
Bristol.
We're not just gonna ship them to someone else. We're gonna figure out where's the right spot, because we don't want, especially in wintertime, you don't want to let people out in the cold. So who do we call when they go? So I've got 2 phone calls set up for this week. I have a draft document from where I used to work in Lake County government. In Illinois, they provided me with their draft document of how they handle these situations. It is still a work in progress everywhere. So don't feel like you're behind, because really no one's figured this out entirely. But we can do a better job by figuring out, at least here's the phone numbers, here's some resources, here's where we can call for assistance. So that's what we're working together. And then the last item is real estate leases. The tree repeat lease is fully signed and executed. We're working on updating fair market values of all of our village properties for lease agreements. And then lastly, for future leases, I was able to reach out to not just the realtor we're using, but also to others to ensure that we have the right rate for those that help us to do the leases. The contract that you have with the real estate entity was silent on leases. It talked to what is the percent paid for sales of property, how much do they receive on commission, but it was silent to what do they get if they help lease a property. I didn't want to just ask them because of course they're on our contract. So I reached out to a number of different contacts and realtors asking what is typical. The typical cost for paying for a realtor to help you find a leasee is the first month's rent. So I would recommend that in the future, when the realtor assists us with helping to find somebody and draft a lease to put somebody into one of our properties, that they would negotiate with us for something different than first month, but first month would be the most you would pay.
One time,
One time.
Yeah, it's over.
not the second any prior.
No, it said the lease signing the first time. So if that tenant stays long-term, they get it one time.
Cassandra, if I may, can I send you a lot number? Because there's been a village resident who's been asking for about 6 months to purchase a tract of land that the Parks Committee has agreed to put it up for sale.
Okay.
And he's been biting at the bit to get this thing. It's non-buildable, so you can't do anything with it. It's a wetland. But I'll send it to you if we can get something going there and at least post it on wherever we post them to see if there's other interests beside himself, and then go with the highest bidder, I guess.
Certainly.
Okay.
Is that the one that the county, the deed says it can't be?
No, this is a different one.
Did we get anywhere with Timber Lane on that one? With the neighbor wanted to buy that lot? Nothing back from the county?
No. Dennis, to answer your question, this is over by Montgomery Lake.
That would be a conclusion.
Yeah, I have a couple comments and questions. When I was a realtor, it is 1 month. And I did that up until just a few years ago. My question on that is, I think that we should do an amendment or an addendum to the contract. And since we already have a lot of leases that just need to be revised, and I know you'll be working with them to try to get the fair market value. I would say that they should not get the first month's, 1 month rent. So we should work out maybe a percentage or something on that just to have them do that fair market value assessment. And then the second thing is that for the leases that they do get a full month rent, they need to do the marketing, they need to do the showing, they need to do it all. Yes, okay. So, but I do think that we should do an addendum too. So if Ramsey could maybe work on that with you and them when you get those answers, I think that would be great. And
On this waiver fee, for example, because we already had the tenant,
yeah,
they only asked for $1. So.
that's great.
And that was also because our lease, our agreement is silent to what the rent would be and
Yeah.
how they would help us. So they are agreeable to working with us on
Yeah,
what that seems to be reasonable. So if they did all of the marketing and they found a brand new leasee because we didn't have somebody, then yeah, the 1 month rent.
Yeah.
If it is something where we already have a leasee or a tenant in the facility, or we've already identified the person and it's just getting the fair market value, then it would be something less than 1 month's rent. But we can come up with exactly what that should be.
yeah,
But it's fair for all.
yeah. So obviously I know that you're gonna go through these and that'll be great. That's really all I have on that.
With the recent cold snap, I was curious as to how many overnight warming centers we have in our village. I noticed the Twin Lake, our library closed for the entire day, so there was no warming center there. Is there any churches or whatnot that do overnights for homeless or warming centers? And if there is, and we gathered that data, is there a place we can put that up?
I'm working with Sharon from the sharing center right now, and she did not identify any overnight ones that she knew off the top of her head.
They all
And
seem
they're
to see around business hours, but Cold doesn't operate that way. And I'm thinking with the village this size, it'd be nice to have access to information if any churches and whatnot actually do overnight.
Mhm.
We
For
did have the
homeless.
village of Salem Lakes added to the warming centers list for those extreme events, so.
But then we
had-
closed Friday.
We were closed on the snowstorm day, but not on the extreme cold day. We were open on that day.
Okay,
The snowstorm day was because we had village staff that couldn't get here and the roads were unsafe.
right,
But on the really cold day, we were open.
yeah.
But yes, I will look and see if there are any other resources in the area for warming shelters that are open overnight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good job.
can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Can I get a second?
Sure.
You make a second? All right. All right. All in favor?
Yes.
Bye.
Aye.